What's something you'd rather you didn't know about? I was working at Disney World when an obese dad tripped walking out of a restaurant with his child in his arms. He landed on the baby and there was no crying. In typical Disney fashion, was not announced dead until it was off Disney property. After my dad died, we had to clean out his apartment. I saw he had a grey hair removal. It occurred to me later, as an adult, that he recognized that I bragged at school for having a late 40s dad with no grey hair on his head. He didn't want to shatter my image of him, so he made sure, when I saw him, that he didn't have any grey. I'm a late 40s dad with no grey hair on my head. Granted, I have no hair on my head, but at least I now have something for my son to be proud of. My dad died a few months ago. He had a heart attack in the middle of the night. I was under the assumption he died in his sleep. When I went to his home, one of his friends was walking me through the home and told me that he was the one that found my dad. Told me he had blood running out his mouth. His eyes were open and it looked like he was struggling to get out of the bed. I didn't ask for that information, and I'm bummed I got it. My dad lived by himself in the middle of nowhere, and it breaks my heart to know he died alone, afraid and in pain. The fact that I buried my hamster alive. I was 9 and neither I or my dad realized that he was hibernating. I didn't realize until years later when I was reading an article on hamster hibernation. I buried my hamster alive, and I feel terrible every time I think about it. The personal lives of YouTubers and influencers. Tell me more. My ex's wife, who he left me for, is an influencer. It'll make me feel better because sitting on her ass seems profitable for her while I work like a dog to barely get by. Please tell me I'm not missing out and that she really is screwed if he ever decides to leave her because her only marketable skills include sex work. She's entirely consumed by other people's thoughts and 24/7 is connected to her phone worrying about the judgment of others. Had a normal friend who became a popular influencer and we are no longer friends. She doesn't have any friends now. She just uses other influencers as pretend friends for girls trips and her kids are props. The entire thing is fake. It's not a life you want. Sleep paralysis. I would of course like to know about it right after it happens, but I would prefer not being afraid to sleep on my back or having background noise so I don't focus on the silence too much to notice that I'm falling asleep as not to accidentally trigger it. Yeah. That people casually enjoy real gore/murder pictures and videos online. If it provides another perspective. I'm a criminal defense attorney from a family of medical people, so I'm completely desensitized to gore. We all love /r/medisy. Sometimes I seek that stuff out because it helps me be prepared for work. I have to see violent murders, beatings, autopsies of children, etc. and need to view them through an analytical lens. Easy to forget how viscerally appalling it is to most. Not for trial, of course. I definitely don't enjoy it though. That blood is drained into the water systems by morticians. Clearly it's harmless, but it freaked me right out. This seems really logical. I also don't think I'd ever have come to that realization on my own, despite a morbid fascination with death. Tillen grimaced. I don't know why dead blood is more creepy than living blood, but it really is. I used to work with human blood samples and was really not comfortable with the idea that once we mix the leftovers with bleach, it's fine to dump it into the municipal water return. I mean, logically there's much worse stuff that ends up at treatment plants, but it always felt so wrong. I worked for a major cancer hospital and had to work late into the night often. One time at like 4 AM I was leaving work, so I took the elevator. About halfway down it stops and in rolls a gurney that's completely covered with a body bag. What I learned is that there is an underground tunnel from the hospital to the morgue that they use to move deceased patients, and there is a near constant stream of bodies going through there every day. It is a very large hospital. I just happened to catch the event at the creepiest time. At 4 AM when hardly anyone else is there working and everything is dark and quiet. I found a stray cat nursing newborn kittens while she was eating one of them. That wasn't fun. The story of that poor man in Russia, I believe it was, who was riding on a scooter and hit over the head by 2 boys and taken into the woods and tortured by them while alive, and they recorded the entire thing as well as torturing animals. The man was alive and breathing while they tortured him. like poking his brain with a screwdriver, videotaped the entire thing. I believe they were given a light sentence because they were related to someone in the legal system or something like that. I know some people who can watch the most gore-filled things, and this one they couldn't even handle. I could never watch it. They played some of the video over a radio show I was listening to, and just from that, I was disturbed and depressed for the few days following. I had to turn the radio off. A lot of people were pissed that it was played on a morning radio show because of how incredibly disturbing even just the sounds are. So effing sad. My heart hurts so bad for his family. That there are God knows how many liters of water trapped in plastic bottles buried in dumps, never to be reunited with the glorious water cycle ever again. Water in different forms just trapped there forever. On the bottom of Lake Tahoe there are at least 200 old Mayfair gangsters preserved because of the depth and temperature of the water. This doesn't account for the amount of Chinese immigrants who were brought to create the railroad system through the Sierra Nevada mountains. Instead of citizenship and pay which they were promised, they were tied together and thrown to the bottom of Tahoe. Jack Cousier was going to do a documentary about it years ago, but it was stopped because of well-known people said nope. That kid who went into the Nutty Putty cave, watched the story on YouTube, and I hate that I know about it, and now I'm picturing his corpse sealed off forever alone in the dark. This haunts me sometimes, especially because he was stuck upside down for so long before he died, and the effect that position had on his body. Poor guy, just a horrible way to go. How rabies works? Yeah, I'm pretty weak lol. Following a bite, the rabies virus spreads by way of the nerve cells to the brain. Once in the brain, the virus multiplies rapidly. This activity causes severe inflammation of the brain and spinal cord, after which the person deteriorates rapidly and dies. I know the crushing sense of loss after the one broke off our engagement and married someone else 7 months later. Where's that effing time machine? You reach a point where you realize you are better off. You'll still think of them from time to time, and that pain never really goes away. It will visit you randomly then disappear as fast as it came on. You will be okay though. Moving forward and not dwelling on the past is best in that situation. Most news are long for the days when global news took weeks to arrive. Nations news was limited to the newspaper and nightly news, and local news was the local paper. I also wish I knew far less about other people and their beliefs. It may have been superficial, but there's something nice about only being able to judge someone by their actions and what they divulge in person. I'm a pharmacy tech in retail, so I handle a large amount of billing. Most people don't realize how much their insurance company controls what they can take, how much they can take, and when they can get their meds. Most of the time, if you go on workers' comp, it's a long and complicated process to get a paid claim for something as simple as ibuprofen for pain, because they know that when the patient finds out how cheap the med is under their own insurance, or that the patient doesn't want to deal with the nonsense of waiting up to 48 hours to get the prior auth for some ibuprofen, that the patient will pay. I always tell them to send workers' comp the receipts and only copies of them, so they can't get lost, and the patient can get reimbursed. It may take a while, but if you get hurt at work, you shouldn't be tagged with the cost. My grandfather, my dad's stepdad who raised him with his mom, was a horrible man. He always treated me horribly, but my siblings much better. My mom was 17. My dad was 20 when she got pregnant with me. The part one wish I didn't know is related to my grandpa. When I was a teen, my mom told me that my grandpa offered to pay for my dad to go and live in California with his BO dad to get away from her. They said her pregnancy was an embarrassment to my grandparents. They were distinguished intellectuals in their circle and this is humiliating. My grandpa then wanted to pay for my mother to abort the pregnancy. Obviously she didn't. I was born, and he hated me. To this day, I'm not sure why my mom felt I needed to know how much my grandpa did not want me here.